Kentucky fans are used to hype, but this 2026-27 roster is interesting because it does not feel like a normal throw a bunch of talent together and hope it works team. This roster has a real point guard, real shooting, real size, and a few weird wild cards who could change the whole season if they hit. The main names are obvious: Diallo, Milan Momcilovic, Malachi Moreno, Alex Wilkins, and Cam Williams. But the part that makes this team worth talking about is how every player has a very different path. Some guys are clear starters. Some guys are matchup pieces. Some guys might barely play early but could matter later. And some guys could be way better than the average fan is expecting. The player I have to start with is Diallo, because if Kentucky is going to be a serious team, he has to be the guy who makes everything calm. Not necessarily the leading scorer every night, not the dude forcing 22 shots, but the guy who gets them into offense, gets down here, makes the easy pass, and keeps the game from turning messy. At Washington, he already proved he could handle a real role. He averaged around 15 points and 4 to 5 assists, and that matters because he was not just doing it against bad teams. He has real size for a guard, and that is a big deal. He is not some small guard who gets swallowed up when the game gets physical. He can see over the defense, he can get to the paint, and when he gets 2 feet in the lane, that is when Kentucky shooters become scary. My prediction for Zoom is around 13 to 15 points a game, and somewhere between 5 and 6 assists. I don't think he needs to average 18 for Kentucky to be good. Actually, if he's averaging 18, that might mean the offense is leaning on him too much. The best version is him scoring when he has to, but mostly making everyone else better. The one thing that decides how high he goes is the jumper. If teams go under screens and he's hitting enough threes to punish them, Kentucky's offense opens up fast. If he's still just okay from 3, teams will test him. But even then, his size and downhill game should keep him on the floor for heavy minutes. Next is Alex Wilkins, and he might be the most fascinating player on the roster because his numbers at Furman were loud. A freshman averaging almost 18 points and almost 5 assists is not normal. That's not just a role player, that's a real creator. But now the question is simple. How much of that translates when every defender is longer, stronger, and faster? I do think some people will overrate him if they just copy and paste his Furman numbers to Kentucky. He probably is not going to average 18 again. But I also think some people will underrate him because the creation is real. He can make plays, he can attack, and it gives Kentucky another guy besides Zoom who can actually bend the defense. I would project Wilkins around 12 to 14 points a game, 3 or 4 rebounds, and about 4 assists. His role should be second creator, not full-time point guard. That's perfect for him. At Furman, he had to create a ton. At Kentucky, he can attack a defense that's already moving. That's a huge difference. Instead of always facing a loaded defense, he'll get catch-and-go chances, late closeouts, and broken plays where his length matters. The big thing is the three-point shot. He shot around the low 30s before, but I think the quality of looks will be better at Kentucky. If he gets to 35 or 36%, he's a clear starter. If he gets close to 38, Kentucky has a problem for other teams. Then you get to Milan Momcilovic, and this is probably the easiest offensive player on the roster to understand. He's here to shoot the cover off the ball. That's his superpower. Kentucky has had shooters before, but this is different because Milan is 6'9", and he's not just a standstill corner guy. He can trail into threes, pop after screens, shoot over contests, and change the spacing of the whole court. Last season, he shot almost 49% from 3 on real volume. You don't fake that. That's not he got hot for 2 weeks. That's elite shooting. I think Milan leads Kentucky. My prediction is around 15 to 17 points a game. If he's healthy, he should be the first name every opponent circles. The reason he matters so much is not just his own points. It's what he does to the defense. You can't help off him. You can't leave him in transition. You can't send lazy doubles into the post when he's 1 pass away. and if defenders stay glued to him, that opens the lane for Zoom, Wilkins, and Moreno. That's why he might be Kentucky's most important offensive player, even if he's not always the guy with the ball. The concern with Milan is defense and rebounding. That's really it. He's 6'9", but he hasn't been a monster rebounder. So if Kentucky plays him at the 4, they need him to at least hold his own. He doesn't have to be Dennis Rodman. He just can't get pushed around every possession. If he's stronger, calmer, and a little more polished, his shooting is so valuable that he has to play major minutes. I would expect him around 29 to 32 minutes a game, especially in big games where Kentucky needs spacing. Now, Malachi Moreno is where the roster gets really serious. A 7-footer coming back after already starting a ton as a freshman is a big deal. He was already productive, around 8 points, 6 rebounds, and about a block and a half. But the thing with big men is they often make their biggest jump in year 2. The game slows down, they get stronger, they stop rushing, they understand angles better. And with Moreno, the base is already there. He has size, touch, passing feel, and shot blocking timing. My prediction for Moreno is around 12 to 14 points a game. Cam Williams is one of the biggest swing players on the team because his role sounds simple, but it is actually huge. He needs to defend, shoot, run the floor, and give Kentucky size on the wing. That is the type of player every good team needs. The problem is, last season was not clean because of the foot injury. So now the question is, are we getting a fully healthy Cam Williams, or are we still waiting for him to look like himself? If he is healthy, I think Cam starts. My prediction is around 9 to 10 points a game and good defensive numbers. He does not need to be a star. He needs to be reliable. Hit open threes, guard good wings, finish in transition, attack a closeout every now and then. Do not make the game harder than it needs to be. His shooting history is strong enough to believe he can be a real floor spacer, and at 6'7", that matters. Kentucky can play him with Zoom, Wilkins, Milan, and Moreno, and suddenly the lineup has size everywhere. The thing I like about Cam is that his best role fits next to stars. He is not fighting Zoom for the ball. He is not taking Milan's shots. He is not clogging the paint for Moreno. He fills gaps. And sometimes those gap-filling players are what make a talented team actually work. If he shoots close to 38 or 39% from 3 and defends, he is a winning player. If the shot is streaky and he is not fully healthy, then Ousmane N'Diaye or Justin McBride starts pushing for those minutes. Ousmane N'Diaye is the wild card. He is probably the player where the range of outcomes is widest. He could be a really useful rotation big who gives Kentucky energy, length, and some shooting, or he could become so good that Kentucky has to start him because the size with him and Moreno together becomes too much. He is around 7 feet, long, mobile, and coming from pro ball in Italy. That is not the same as college basketball, but it does mean he has played against grown adults. He is not just a raw high school big walking into practice for the first time. I would project N'Diaye around 7 or 8 points, 5 rebounds, and about a block in 18 to 20 minutes a game. The appeal is obvious. If he can shoot in the low to mid 30% from 3, run the floor, rebound, and defend without fouling, he is a give Kentucky a totally different look. Imagine him at the 4 with Moreno at the 5. That is a massive front court, but it only works if he can guard in space and if the offense does not get clogged. If he is just standing around or getting pushed off spots, the fit gets tricky. But if he is active, hitting enough shots, and using his length, he could be the player who changes the ceiling of the team. N'Diaye's season might start slow. That would not shock me. International players sometimes need time with college spacing, refs, physicality, and the speed of the game. But by January or February, he could look very different. That is why I would not judge him too early. He might be one of those guys where fans say, what is he doing in November? And then by March, they are saying, we need him on the floor. Frank Kepnang is a much easier player to understand. He is big, physical, and he gawks shots. That's his job. He He is not coming here to be a stretch big. He is not coming here to run offense. He is coming here to protect the rim, rebound, set hard screens, and give Kentucky a real body when Moreno needs a break. At Washington, he averaged over 2 blocks a game, and that matters because rim protection travels. If you can block shots and be physical in the Big Ten, you can help in the SEC. My prediction for Kepnang is around 4 or 5 points, 5 rebounds, and maybe close to 2 blocks in 12 to 14 minutes. His per-minute impact could be really strong, even if his scoring average is low. He might have games where he only plays 7 minutes because the matchup is too fast or Kentucky needs shooting. But then he might have another game where Kentucky is facing a huge front court and he plays 18 minutes because they need his strength. That is his value. He gives them a different answer. The concern with Kepnang is offense and free throws. If teams ignore him away from the rim, the spacing changes. If he gets fouled late, that can become an issue. But as a backup center, he is very useful. You don't need him to be perfect. You need him to make life uncomfortable in the paint. And there are going to be games where Kentucky fans love him because he checks in, blocks 2 shots, grabs 3 boards, and suddenly the whole energy changes. Justin McBride is another player I think fans should not sleep on. He averaged over 15 points at James Madison and shot around 40% from 3. At 6'8" and 250 pounds, that is interesting. He's not some skinny shooter who gets pushed around. He has real size. He can score inside, he can space the floor, and he gives Kentucky an older body who has already been productive. That matters on a roster where some guys are still figuring out their role. I would project McBride around 4 to 7 points a game, depending on how the rotation shakes out. If he only gets 10 minutes, maybe he averages 4. If he wins a bigger bench role, he could average 7 or 8. The reason his role is hard to predict is because he is fighting for minutes with bigger names and different skill sets. Milan is the offensive star at forward. Moreno is the center. N'Diaye has the upside. Kepnang has the rim protection. Cam has the wing defense and shooting. So where does McBride fit? He fits if Kentucky wants strength and shooting together. He fits if they need a grown man at the 4. He fits if his 3-point shot is real against SEC closeouts. The question with McBride is defense. Can he guard quicker 4s? Can he switch enough? Can he rebound hard enough to force the staff to play him? If yes, he could be one of the most underrated guys on the roster. If not, he becomes more of a matchup scorer. But I like having a player like him because when the offense gets stuck, sometimes you need someone who can just use his body, get to a spot, and score. Jerome Morton is a veteran guard who may not get fans excited right away, but coaches usually love having someone like this. He's experienced, he can shoot, he doesn't need a ton of touches, he can handle the ball, he can play off the ball. That is valuable when you already have Zoom and Wilkins doing most of the creation. Not every guard has to be a star. Sometimes you need a guard who can come in, calm things down, hit an open 3, and not turn the ball over. My prediction for Morton is around 3 to 6 points a game, depending on minutes. I actually think his minutes could vary a lot. If Kentucky stays healthy, maybe he is in that 7 to 12-minute range. If Zoom or Wilkins misses time, Morton suddenly becomes way more important. He is probably the best insurance guard on the team. And in a long season, that matters. There are always injuries, foul trouble, weird matchups, and nights where a starter is not sharp. Morton's path to more minutes is shooting and defense. If he shoots close to 38 or 40% from 3, it is hard to keep him buried. But he also has to hold up defensively. Kentucky cannot have a guard who gets hunted every possession. If he is just solid on that end, his shooting and decision-making will keep him in the mix. Braden Hawthorne is the young upside guy. He redshirted, he has size, and he was a highly rated recruit. This is the type of player where you cannot just look at last year's numbers because there were no real numbers. The whole question is development. Did the redshirt year actually change his body? Did the game slow down? Did the jumper get cleaner? Did he learn the system enough to play without mistakes? I would project Braden around 2 to 5 points a game in limited minutes, but he is one of the players most likely to beat that projection. He has the size and talent to force his way onto the floor. At 6'8" with length, he gives Kentucky something different on the wing. If he defends and runs the floor, he can get minutes. If he hits open shots, he can get real minutes. But if he is still raw, Kentucky does not have to rush him because the roster is older. The thing with Braden is he might not need a huge role to matter. He could be an energy guy early, a few minutes here, a few minutes there. Then maybe by January he starts stealing minutes from someone. That is the type of player fans should watch in blowouts and early non-conference games, not because the numbers will be huge, but because you can see if the body and confidence are different. Trent Noah is the kind of player Kentucky fans already understand. He's tough, he can shoot, he's from Kentucky, and is easy to root for. The issue is not whether he can play basketball. The issue is whether there are enough minutes. This roster is crowded, and when a roster is crowded, a guy like Noah can get squeezed. He might be good enough to help, but still not have a clear nightly role. I would project Noah around 2 or 3 points a game and spot minutes. His job is simple: be ready. If Kentucky needs shooting, be ready. If a wing gets in foul trouble, be ready. If the team needs toughness and somebody who knows where to be ready. He probably won't be a high-usage player. He's not going to have the ball a lot, but he can still help by rebounding, making the extra pass, and hitting open threes. For Noah to force more minutes, the shot has to become automatic enough that the staff cannot ignore it. If he's shooting 33 or 34%, that's fine, but maybe not enough on this roster. If he's closer to 38 or 40%, now the conversation changes, because then he gives you spacing with toughness, and that's always useful. Mason Williams is a true freshman, and I think fans need to be patient with him. He has a strong frame, good guard instincts, and the background of being around the game. But Kentucky is not desperate for him to play right away. That's good for him. He can learn behind older guards instead of being thrown into a role he's not ready for yet. My prediction for Mason is very limited minutes, maybe 1 or 2 points a game if he plays regularly at all. But that doesn't mean he's not valuable. Freshman guards can take time, especially when the team already has Zoom, Wilkins, and Morton. His best season might be one where he learns, gets stronger, plays in blowouts, and is more ready for year 2. If he plays more than expected, it probably means he is defending well and taking care of the ball. That's how freshmen earn trust. Zion Hawthorne is in a similar developmental lane, maybe even more so. He's smaller, lighter, and probably needs time physically. He can pass, and the assist numbers from prep ball are interesting, but the SEC is a different world. Strong guards are going to test him. Ball pressure is going to be real. The speed is going to be real. So I wouldn't expect much from him right away. My prediction is that Zion either barely plays or could even be a redshirt type if that's the best plan. If he does play, it's probably late game minutes, small bursts, and learning moments. That's okay. Not every player has to be judged by freshman year numbers. His goal should be adding strength, improving the jumper, and learning how to run a team at this level. If he does that, his value comes later. Reese Potter is the last big on the roster, and he's interesting because he has size and some shooting touch, but the front court is packed. At 7'1", he gives Kentucky another huge body. He's played college basketball before, and he used a redshirt year, so maybe there's more development there than people realize. But with Moreno, Kepnang, N'Diaye, McBride, and Milan all in the front court mix, minutes are hard to find. I would project Potter around 1 to 3 points a game in very limited action. His path to playing is pretty clear. Injuries, foul trouble, or a matchup where Kentucky wants a stretch 5. If he can really shoot it, that gives him a different angle than Kepnang. Kepnang is the physical rim protector. Potter would be more the spacing big, but he has to prove he can hold up defensively and rebound. If not, it's hard to play him in serious games. So when you put all of this together, my starting 5 would probably be Zoom Diallo, Alex Wilkins, Cam Williams, Milan Momcilovic, and Malachi Moreno. That gives Kentucky 2 creators, 2 high-level shooters, good size, and a real center. The first guys off the bench are probably N'Diaye, Kepnang, McBride, and Morton, depending on the matchup. Braden Hawthorne is the young player who could force his way higher.
Trent Noah is the steady depth piece. Mason Williams, Zion Hawthorne, and Reese Potter are more developmental or emergency depth. The biggest thing for this team is balance. Last year, Kentucky teams sometimes had talent, but not always the right mix. This roster looks like it has more answers. Need shooting, Milan, Cam, McBride, Morton, Noah. Need size, Moreno, Kepnang, N'Diaye, Potter. Need creation, Zoom and Wilkins. Need a wild card, Braden. That doesn't mean everything will work right away, but it does mean the roster has options. My final stat predictions would look something like this. Milan around 15 or 16 points. Zoom around 14 points and 6 assists. Wilkins around 13 points and 4 assists. Moreno around 12 points and 8 rebounds. Cam around 9 or 10 points. N'Diaye around 7 or 8 points. McBride around 5 with strong rebounding and blocks. Kepnang around 5 with strong rebounding and blocks. Morton around 4 or 5 as a steady guard. Braden around 3 or 4 if he earns a role. Noah around 2 or 3. Mason, Zion, and Potter probably lower unless the rotation opens up. And that's why this Kentucky team is so interesting. It's not just about one superstar. It's about whether the pieces fit. If Zoom controls the game, if Milan shoots like Milan, if Moreno makes the sophomore jump, if Wilkins translates, and if Cam stays healthy, Kentucky has a real core. Then if one of N'Diaye, McBride, or Braden pops, the ceiling gets a lot higher. That's the difference between being a good team and being a team people don't want to see in March.